Here we go. Welcome to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. This show is just for woodshop owners, cabinet makers, architectural mill workers, closet companies, those of you that are interested in the business of the woodshop business. Now, look, there's a chance we haven't met yet, but here's what I know about you. You are not here by accident. Something in you, you've got this internal drive, this fire that's looking for something more out of the business, more for your life, more for your family. You're ready to grow. You're looking for ways to grow. And so you went looking for this podcast because nobody comes looking for a show called Cabinet Maker Profit System by accident. So welcome home. Today's episode is pretty juicy and very rare, like unique. And I'll tell you why. So today's guest is Kathy Svetina. Now, Kathy is a CFO. I'll explain that in a second. You can find Kathy and myself on LinkedIn. Kathy's name is spelled with a K, and her last name is Svetina. And of course, my name, Dominic Rubino. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Or you can also join me on the Facebook group called Contractor Strategy Group. At any point in time, shoot me a text and just say, Dom, let's talk. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. Today, Kathy and I are going to be digging into a topic you may never have considered before. What is a WIP report and how do I use it to get better at managing money and projects in my wood shop? Now, here's why this episode's important, because for some of you today, you're going to learn some new words, which is kind of fun, right? They're the kind of words you only learn about when you're in growth mode. Words like CFO. Now, CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer. So today, Kathy and I are going to talk about the differences between a CFO, who's a very forward-facing type of accountant, and the difference between a forward-facing CFO and a backward-facing accountant or bookkeeper, right? Accountants and bookkeepers look at what happened. A CFO tells you what's going to happen. Very interesting financial professional. You're also going to learn about a report. It's called a WIP report. It's spelled WIP, and that stands for a work in progress report. Now, if you've been curious, searching for ways to understand how to better forecast your business while taking into account jobs that are already in process, whether they're on paper, before they hit the CNC, all the way up to, assembly, or while it's during install, then this episode is for you. Now, here's the other reason this episode's important, because the odds are slim to none that you or any of your biggest competitors in the city, your county, your state, your province that you live in are using a CFO to generate WIP reports. Now, you might go, okay, Rubino, how the heck do you know that? You're not where I live. I never see you when I go out for coffee. How would you know that? Because myself and my team, we talk to hundreds of different cabinet shops every single year. If I do 10 new meetings a week, I probably talk to 500 cabinet shops a year. Rough. But during that year, I talk to cabinet shops and millwork companies, closet companies that have sales anywhere from 200,000 or 2 million or 20 or 60 million dollars a year in sales. I mean, heck, just last week, I was in a business coaching meeting. I work with a retail store fixture workshop. He was approached by a French bank who represents a European mill workshop who's looking to expand into the United States. I'm in the middle of a bunch of very cool conversations. And at the same time, last week, I had a conversation with a great guy that's doing 200 grand out of his garage, right? So over the course of a year, probably 2 companies a year use a CFO to track WIP reports. I mean, that sentence alone is weird, but you now know about it. I've opened your mind to a new level of business. That's my job. I challenge myself and my team, find us guests, find us topics that you, my audience, would normally never have access to or even know are important. Now, since this show is all about the business of cabinetry, millwork, and closets, we have to look at the business from multiple angles. And so today, Kathy's going to show you an angle you've probably never considered. Now, I also want to give a special shout out to Stephen and Heidi. They build beautiful kitchen cabinets up in British Columbia, actually not very far from my favorite moose hunting spot. They just built their strategic plan, and now they have a clear track of getting a hold of their finances. So Stephen can get off the tools, imagine that, so they could buy their building and have stability and clarity in their company. Great job, guys. If you want to learn about one-on-one business coaching at any time, shoot me a text. Just say, Dom, let's talk. You guys know my cell. Another reminder that WIP reporting has a lot to do with getting in control of your scheduling issues. Now, you've probably already heard the Mark Sanderson episode. I've got Brad Cairns coming in. Brad is from Quantum Lean. He's going to be talking about the same thing. Anyways, from the Mark Sanderson episode, I created a brand new tool for us. It's based on a question from Nick, who happens to be in Central Alberta. Maybe this is the All Canada shout out episode. Anyways, this tool I created for Nick is a one-page simple visual, and you can share it with your foreman, your project manager, estimator. You'll know who to share it with as soon as you see it. What it does is translate work in progress into a flow chart. That flow chart, it's a visual. It makes sense for everybody. It's actually just one page, right? You print it out, make it a poster, make it out 8.5 by 11, whatever you need. But it makes sense for everybody. But what it shows you is the levers in your business and what you can do with the levers. You can push them, pull them. But either way, it's to get ahead of scheduling issues as a woodshop. Hands up if you've had scheduling issues in your workshop. It is the perfect dovetail to Kathy's insight on the financial part of that same conversation. Now, Nick and I like to goof around in our coaching meetings. So I named this download the Rodina scale after Nick. So just say Rodina scale in a text message. We can all have a good laugh. I'll just give you my cell again, 315-903-7853. Just say Rodina scale. Now, that one-page visual is just one example of the simple systems my coaches and I are here to show you to help run this business smoother, make the money you deserve, and live the life you want. There are simple systems to help you run the business, right? And they all come back to mindset. Now, I just said mindset, but two things. First, I want you to do this with me. I want you to stand up straight, put your shoulders back a little bit, lift your chin 1/4 of an inch, and take a deep breath in. That's the feeling I want you to have in the business, that quiet confidence. Weird, right? Who would think that from a business coach talking about the cabinetry trade? Here we are. Anyways, I got a couple of dad jokes for you, which is the second part of mindset. And why dad jokes? Why bad jokes? And why dad jokes poorly delivered with poor timing? Because I want to get you laughing. Today is really going to open up your mind. You've probably never heard from a professional like Kathy. But I also want to open your mind the way we normally do. Tell you a couple of jokes, get you giggling. And I know you're going to share these with somebody else. Of course, you want these, right? Hey, why did the banker switch careers? She lost interest. You can tell this one to the kids. Hey, why was the math book unhappy? I had too many financial problems. Now, if you got really little kids, this one's going to make them giggle for sure. What do you call a dinosaur that's good with money? An Investosaurus. Oh, that goes out to all the grandpas out there. Tell your grandkids that joke. They'll squeal with laughter. Hey, got a story for you. Once upon a time, there was a wise and clever old farmer. He wanted to have a horse on the farm for the kids to ride and play with. Hey, maybe he's a listener to this show and he's telling them dad jokes too. But anyways, went to one of his neighbors and bought that guy's only horse. And he paid $100 for the horse. Gave his money in advance to the neighbor and said, come back and get it the next day. Anyways, he goes back the next day and the neighbor tells him, hey, the horse has died. And sorry, but I already spent the $100. The old farmer, he takes off his hat, scratches his hair, scratches his chin, rubs his beard, thinks about it for a second. And says, well, still going to take the horse. A couple of days later, the neighbor sees the old farmer in town. The neighbor asks him, hey, what'd you ever do with that old dead horse? Well, I ended up selling that dead horse for $500. Of course, the neighbor says, well, how the heck did you do that? The old farmer said, well, I went to the county fair a few towns over. I set up a booth and I offered the horse through a lottery. Tickets were $5. I ended up selling 102 tickets. And in the end, I gave the horse to the winner. The neighbor is like rocked back on his heels. Like, what? Didn't the guy complain that he'd won a dead horse? Well, see, he bought tickets for a horse. And when I told him the horse had died, I apologized and I gave him double his money back. Nice. Some of you are doing the math on your fingers. You're like, what? Huh? Hey, I got to tell you about my buddy George before we get to this. George gets a call from his lawyer. Never good, right? The lawyer goes, I got to meet you right away. Come down to the office. The good old Georgie goes down to the lawyer's office. Comes right in. The lawyer says, hey, do you want the bad news first or you want the terrible news? And Georgie goes, well, if those are my choices, I guess I'll take, the bad news first. The lawyer says, well, George, your wife found a picture. It's worth $500,000. George goes, what? That's the bad news? If you call that bad, I can't wait to hear the terrible news. The lawyer looks him dead in the eye and says, well, the terrible news is that the picture is of you and your secretary. Burn. All right, folks, listen. Are you missing the end of the show, by the way? Are you just fast forwarding the end of the show? William, I'm talking to you. That fast forward button. Probably Martin as well. Talking to you guys. You guys are missing out on something very important because at the end of the show, I do a very specific mini training segment. My job there is to simplify and solve a common business problem. So make sure you stay to the end. Look, guys, I host this podcast because one day I would be proud to be your business coach. Myself and my team are there and ready to stand beside you as you march forward in the growth of your company. If we can ever help, or if you're curious or you want to ask questions, shoot me a text and just say, Dom, let's talk. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. By the way, there are a number of new coaching programs. If you've ever been in Construction Millionaire Bootcamp, if you ever took part years ago in 30-day construction business, or years ago in the Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leagues courses, we now have a bootcamp, Construction Millionaire Bootcamp alumni program that you qualify for. It's super affordable. And what it's made to do is keep you marching down the path in a reasonable way so you're always growing and moving forward. Watch for a message from us on that. Of course, I also added 3 business coaches to the team. It's, as you've heard me say before, it is hard to become a business coach on my team, and I make it that way on purpose. Did you know that all of my coaches have built or sold or turned around a construction or contracting company of their own? How many people do you even know that have done that? And I've managed to find 3 top-notch, high-quality coaches who can do that. So when you meet with me and my coaching team, we can always put together a program that's right for you and however you want to do it. The key is, what do you want to do in the business? And if you don't even know that, you just know you want something different, just talk to me anyways. We've always got options, or at least we'll have a great conversation. Okay. You guys ready? I'm going to go into business coach mode. Today, you're going to hear something, learn something from Kathy or me. I want you to take action on that in the next 24 hours, because this is the kind of information that nobody around you in your industry knows about. So you've got what's called first mover advantage. Take it. All right, let's get to it. Kathy Svetina, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me, Dominic.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced your name. It's Svetina.
Yes, that's correct.
God, I knew I was going to get it wrong. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I corrected it.
You did. Yes.
I did. Hey, it's great to have you here. We're going to talk about finance today. One of the most exciting topics ever to grace the airwaves.
Of course. Finance. What else could be more exciting than that?
Well, to this crowd, it's exciting because we're going to talk about work in progress reports and WIP accounting, which I think a lot of people overlook. And one of the reasons I brought you here is because there's a lot of opportunity inside those reports, isn't there?
Yes. So if you know how to read them and how to do them well, there's a wealth of information in those reports. And I'm sure we're going to get into details on that.
Yeah. But before we do, Kathy Svetina, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing cabinet makers and millworkers and closet companies all over the world?
So I am a fractional CFO, and I know this sounds a little bit complicated, but it really isn't. So when you think about a fractional CFO, we are there for a fraction of the time, because a lot of times in the small business world, you do need someone who's going to be more strategic about your finances. And you don't really need a full-time CFO because they're expensive and you don't really need them, to be honest. So we are there for a fraction of the time, for a fraction of the cost than what an actual full-time CFO would be in your business. So I've been doing this in my own company, NewCastle Finance, for the last 5 years. But before that, I've been in corporate finance for 15 years. So I've been doing this for 20 years so far. And it's been a fun run.
I bet you probably have some great stories. People wouldn't think it, but we see all sorts of situations and business situations that come up that would probably be a great TV show.
I I hope it would be. At least for me, it would be interesting. I don't know, again, if for other people it would be, because we can get into a lot of details, but definitely because fractional CFOs look at the business holistically.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't just get the information about the numbers, but also how those numbers affect the business and how all these dots in the business, sales, marketing, operations affect the
Mhm.
finances. So yeah, it could be now you give me an idea. Maybe I should do a YouTube video show like that.
Sidetrack of fractional CFO.
Yep.
Um, what I'll do though is, because this just occurred to me, is why don't we take a step back? Because
Yep.
people might not understand what a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, or fractional CFO is, when a lot of times I'm talking to people about making sure they have good bookkeeping or accounting or a controller, etc. What are the different financial positions that we can expect to evolve through as our business grows?
And this is a great question because when you think about finances in your business, there's a lot of pieces that need to be done well for you to get the information and the data and actually make decisions based on that information. So the way how to think about it is your bookkeepers are actually the people who are doing transactional type of work.
Mm,
They are making sure that your bills are paid on time, making sure that you are actually billing your customers and clients and you're getting money in, that all your transactions in the business are in the right buckets, in the right order, that everything is categorized in the right way, and that you have actually whatever financially is happening in your business is
mm,
in your financial statement so that you're not missing anything. So that's the job of a bookkeeper. Then you have essentially the job of an accountant, which
sure.
most likely are going to focus on the taxes, making sure that you have the right type of tax burden so that you're not
Mhm.
paying too much in taxes. And then, but you will notice here that I'm talking about the past and basically the present here. So that is what the accounting world does. They focus on the past and focus on the present so that you have the
Mm,
reporting and then you have all your numbers in. But you don't live in the past, and you do live in the present, obviously, but you also need to think about your future. And this is where the finance folks come in, like myself, like a fractional CFO, that help you focus on the future of your business,
mhm.
making sure that the business is going to be financially healthy and sustainable for the long run so that you're not running out of cash, that your margins are in the right way,
Right.
that you're not overly hiring the people, that they help you make decisions of who you're going to be hiring. All those types of future focused decisions is where a fractional CFO is going to help you with. And on top of that, they look at the business holistically because, again, everything that you do in your business is going to end up in your finances. So they need to
Yeah.
know what's happening in the business so that they can help you advise on the future of the business.
Okay. I mean, that's why you say the numbers tell a story, right? The finances of a company tell a story. And for many of us, we want to sell the business one day. And people are going to go back and look at the books. And hopefully, somebody like you has been there to steer the company through creating the right story by making the right decisions that get notated and marked down.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're planning to exit the business by selling the business, you need to prep for it at least 3 years. That's the minimum in advance.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're doing that 5 to 10 years in advance.
Ooh, that's a good point. So I'm going to take a weird direction in this, Kathy.
Sure.
Have you seen bad bookkeeping? And I don't mean a bad person. I mean somebody doing a 5 out of 10 job on bookkeeping impact a business negatively.
All the time.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons why before I go and work for a client, we actually take a look at their accounting and their bookkeeping, because if the accounting and the bookkeeping isn't done the right way and it
Mm,
isn't clean, I cannot do my job. Like
yeah.
I cannot help them advise, because if the numbers are all jumbled, if the transactions are old, if you're not reconciling your bank account statements, if you're not doing all of that, you're going to have bad data. Bad data makes bad decisions.
Right.
So you have to make sure that the accounting and the bookkeeping is done in the right way. And I've seen so many clients that have come in, they're completely confused by their books, have no idea what's happening, because the bookkeeper, not that they're bad bookkeeper, it's just that they might not be the bookkeeper that they need. Sometimes I will say that they have like an office manager doing their books,
Yeah.
or their neighbor or maybe even their spouse doing it, but they don't have the accounting background. And I will
Yeah.
tell you this, that just because someone has an expertise in QuickBooks or Xero or whatever software you're using,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that they will be a good bookkeeper, because whatever accounting tool you're using, whether QuickBooks, Xero, or whatever else you're using, is just a tool. They need to know accounting to be able to categorize these transactions the right way. And if they don't, I mean, it's just going to be garbage. And I've seen, for example, just recently, we were looking at the balance sheet of one of the clients, and on the assets, when you have an assets, for example, if you have a like if you have, let's say, tools that
Mm-hmm.
you have on your account, your asset account, you also have depreciation, meaning that every year you take depreciation. Depreciation should never be more than an asset. If you have a negative asset, that means that your bookkeeper or your accountant are doing a really, really bad job at
Mm.
making sure that your books are done right. So things like that, that I see on people's books, and because business owners don't really look at these things in that way, sometimes they don't understand, like, why does this matter, and also how does it affect them in the long term.
Yeah. It's funny that you and I come to the same conclusion because we come at business from different angles, right? You come from the
Yep.
finance angle and I come from the operations and management angle. But a lot of times we've just evolved, right? These are cabinet makers and mill workers, and they started this business on their own. And I know lots of people, their first job was something really humble. They made a kitchen for somebody in their family, and then somebody else said, "Hey, can you help me?" And now they're like the city's one of the top three cabinet makers in the city, or one of the top three mill workers in their city, or top three closet companies. They've evolved. And one of the things that we forget to do is look back and go, well, I've evolved and my spouse is helping me with the books, or my father-in-law is helping me with the books, but they haven't evolved. And I'm going to urge people again, and I've said this before, at risk of offending people who I've never even met, it might be time to change your bookkeeper. Look at
Yep.
it and look at it this way. They've been doing you a favor up till now. Please go thank them. Cut them a little bonus check. Say thank you for your help, but we're going to go find another bookkeeper so that you can finally have your time back. I mean, most of our spouses would actually love that. Even though they give you a little bit of a fight, they would love to have that time back, especially if they're not trained as a bookkeeper. You need a proper bookkeeper to do the books.
Yep.
I feel like I'm on a soapbox now, but you opened it up for me, so I thought I'd take it. But it happens so much. It just does, you know. And of course, we've got lots of situations where you've got an office manager who's super nice person. They're like, well, I can help on the books. And so you're like, oh, great, we need that done. But are they doing the best job at our books? And
And then the other thing that I would also say is, and this is a very uncomfortable subject, but I'm going to bring it up too, that, and I have had two potential clients come to me where they had that happen in their business, that their bookkeeper was actually stealing from them.
I've had
And
that conversation. I probably have that conversation about twice a year. It's horrible.
And it's absolutely horrible. And the reason why that might happen too is because you're thinking, well, I'm just going to give it all to one person. They can do all the stuff, but you don't have the proper controls in the place. And in the finance world, we call this internal controls. So it essentially, one of the basic ones is that you should never have one person. Obviously, if you have your spouse doing this, it's a whole different story. But if you're paying someone to do this, even if it's an office manager, that they should never be cutting a check, meaning writing a check, putting it in your financial system and reconciling it, because someone can fictitiously put that in, put it under their own account, or maybe put a fictional company together and basically funnel their money to their bank account. So you always have to make sure that you have some type of balance, checks and balances in place so that you can see. And it could be simple things like, for example, you ask them once every 3 months to give you a vendor report out of the out of your QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you're using, and you go through fine comb and say, well, these are the vendors that I have. Is there anything unusual in there? Also, looking at your bank account statements and just kind of glance through it, is there some things that don't make sense, so that you have this oversight of someone, not just one person looking at the money, but you have two people. And it doesn't have to be you. It could be someone else that you trust that can do that. But you at least have two people looking at the money versus just one.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that this is an awkward conversation, and yet Kathy and I are still both happy to jump into it. I mean, you're on the finance side, so you might see it more often than I do, but I still see it about twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's bad because, even when you go to the police, they'll tell you right away, well, good luck trying to recollect that. Good luck. And then the police will also turn to you and say, you should have had better controls in place. You allowed this to happen. And now
Yep.
the owner's stuck just like, fish or cut bait. I got to get out of here. This is just a bad situation. The only thing I would
Exactly.
add is this, is if your spouse is currently doing your books and they're worried about having somebody else come and do the books because we can't trust the person, then say to your spouse, why don't you be our soft internal auditor? Let the bookkeeper do their thing and you come in and check on them every month or two just to keep them, on task and on point. But when we get to this work in progress reporting that I want to talk to you about today, we can't have good WIP, work in progress reporting, unless we've got clean numbers anyway. So it all goes hand in hand.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, and I do love, and I will go back that I do love that example of if you don't feel comfortable someone else doing the books because the spouse wants to do it, it is going to be so beneficial if your spouse is actually, or whoever you trust, looking over the books. So you're not handing all the keys to the kingdom to someone else, and you never should be. You
Right.
have someone who you trust look over, but they're not the one actually doing things. And keep in mind that if they have questions, the good bookkeeper will provide answers. If they're saying, well, I have no idea why, or if you see that there's something going on, then just find yourself a new bookkeeper. You can always do that, but it's good that you have two people doing your books. Always, always good, two people
Yeah.
doing the books.
I actually have a list of red flags for if your bookkeeper is stealing from you. I don't actually talk about it much because it's negative and I try not to focus on negative things. But if anybody wants the red flags report, send it off to me, or you can reach Kathy as well. I'm sure you have your own systems for figuring those things out. But there's always, you just mentioned it. If somebody's never getting you the reports you ask for, if there's always an excuse why they can't get you a report, there's a reason.
Oh yeah.
And it is time to get very curious and very ornery about your curiosity. Like
And it might
right
not be
now.
something sinister that they're stealing from you. It just
No,
might not
but
be that they're just not good at what they do, or they might not have the capacity, which is not serving you as a business owner either, because now you're not getting the information that you need.
I feel like we now have a two-topic interview. Look at us. Look at how efficient we are. Okay, listen. This is people who manufacture, and work in progress reporting is a big deal. But a lot of people may not have heard of it or understand the benefits of WIP reporting. Can you take a second and just take us back to zero? Why is WIP reporting important for those of us that manufacture?
So WIP is an important part if you're manufacturing, and also if you are installing these particular cabinets
Oh,
in your
true. Yeah.
customers. Because if you're just manufacturing, then you're really only concerned about your inventory and when you're actually, building these types of
Mm,
cabinets. But if you're also installing them in your customers'
right.
homes, that means that you are getting a lot of money up front, and your cost is going to come through later, especially if you're using a lot of other people that are doing labor, for example, that you're going to be paying them to install these cabinets. If you don't use the work in progress report adjustments in your financial statements, your
Right.
P&L, your profit and loss statement, is going to look like a roller coaster, because you're going to be getting a lot of money up front, but the cost, for example, for labor is going to come later on, like maybe even 2 months from now or 3 months from now, who
Right.
knows? And you're going to get a lot of money up front. It's going to look like you have so much profit. And then the cost is going to come later, and it's going to look like you're losing money. So that's why this work in progress report is so important, because it's going to stabilize those peaks and valleys in your profit and loss statement. And you're going to be able to make better decisions because the P&L is going to actually make sense. And this is why a lot of times when I come into these types of businesses, the profit and loss statement and actually a lot of their financial statements just don't make sense. And that it's
Mm,
because these adjustments are not made. And these types of the businesses that we're talking about, they're very sensitive to the right type of reporting, because you don't have the right type of reporting, you're going to have a very hard time making good financial decisions.
yeah. I can imagine this really impacting like credit facilities, like your ability to lend or to,
Oh yeah.
or to borrow. I'm sorry, not to lend, but you go into the bank and you've already purchased a bunch of materials for a job that's about to start. So now you're out the money. before perhaps the bulk of the money comes in. Then you're right, you've hired labor, you've got machinery, you've got all these things up and running. Maybe you've got some storage that's holding machine parts as you're making them. There's a lot of costs going in, and your income hasn't matched up with it.
Yeah. And it's interesting too that a lot of times, sometimes banks don't understand that type of dynamic. So, like for someone like for myself, I have to go and educate the bankers on how to read the financial reports
Right.
because they don't understand these adjustments. Like, well, why is this even happening? And I will tell you that, sometimes the bankers are just not the greatest bankers that I've worked with, but
No.
the really good ones understand what is happening in the business because a banker should understand the business and the industry you're in. Because if they don't, if they're just putting in, if you're being compared to someone who's in a service industry, like me, for example, we have two completely different businesses. And a banker should understand that. And unfortunately, sometimes when I go and I have conversations with bankers, they don't really get it. Not
Isn't
that I
that the
have
other?
anything against bankers. Some are
No, no,
really
no. I
lovely.
don't either, but I do find that the best bankers get promoted away.
Yeah.
Every time I have a great banker, I say this to my wife. I'm like, oh, if we've got a great banker. And then we look at each other, we're like, they're going to get promoted and leave us pretty soon. And then somebody else takes their shoes and on
Yep.
it goes. Um, that's an interesting point though, about for people that have never thought about working with a CFO, somebody like yourself, and they're, a fractional CFO is like using a little bit of a CFO a lot, is that conversation with the bank is something that you guys do. Like you
Yes.
actually help that facilitate that conversation and make the case for this particular company's operations. And if you're looking at buying raw land and redeveloping it to build your next facility, you need somebody to walk that conversation through with the bank or whoever's lending you, because we don't do this every day. Whereas I think for you, it's a more normal conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And and the bank is probably a good bank will ask you for the financial models. So if you have someone like a fractional CFO develop those, you're going to be so much ahead because that's what we do. And the other thing is the benefit is as well that banks are a lot more comfortable giving loan to companies that have people like CFOs helping the businesses because they know that they have someone in there that it's going to help with the money versus someone who doesn't. So it's the same thing with investors as well. Investors feel a lot more comfortable giving money to companies that have a CFO in the business. And, sometimes they install their own CFO in there. And Dominic and I talked about this
We
before
just
we
talked
started
about,
recording
yeah,
that
yeah.
that might be a little bit of a hairy situation because the CFO wants something else and because they're planted by the investors and what you want in the strategy of the business. But the fact of the matter is that if you have a CFO in the business and you're trying to work with the bank or with investors, they're going to be a lot more comfortable giving the money because they know that you have someone there to look at the money strategically versus just, counting the beans, so to speak, which is still important,
Yeah.
but the business needs much more than that.
You know, I always think about the Knights of the Round Table, and I know it's a made up story, but it's a really good visual, right? The Knights of the Round Table, Lancelot and everybody else sitting around the king. But the reason that the knights are there is to advise the king. They're the advisors from different parts of the kingdom, and the strongest leaders always seek wise counsel. They just know they can't do it on their own. And if you ever watch the news and you see the president giving an address to the country, there's always a bunch of people in the background, right? I'm not talking about the guys in dark suits with black glasses that have the earphone. That's a totally different job, and we don't talk about that on the show. But the rest of the people around in business suits and stuff, those are the advisors to the president. The president doesn't know how much we just sold in fish to another country, but there's somebody in that standing behind him or her that does. And so they'll turn to that person and say, how much did we sell in cod to this other country? Right. And that person will just have the answer. They have wise counsel who knows their area of expertise. And that's where you and I come in. We're that wise counsel who's in the background, ready to advise the president. Now we're talking about a company president, not a country. But that's where you need these advisors, because if you're going to go and redevelop a raw chunk of land because you want to build a 20,000 square foot facility to manufacture, you can't just walk into the bank and go, "Hey, my name's Charlie. How you feeling today?" You're not going to
I
get
wish it
anywhere.
worked that way. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Maybe it used to. Maybe in some small towns it still does.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. So when you've done this WIP reporting for companies, this might be a bit of a difficult question, but can you tell us a story about somebody, what they were like before they started using the WIP report and after the WIP report?
Yeah. So recently I worked with a client, and when I came in, they was the financials just didn't make sense. As I've said, a lot of the number one way for you to realize that you need something like this is if you look at your profit and loss statement and you're completely lost and have no idea what's going on. So one times you're making money, then you're losing money, and it just doesn't make sense. Like if you are making these cabinets and you're installing them, you should be making money, especially if you know what your margins are. But if one month you're making a lot and then you're not making any money, or you're actually in the loss, that's a clear indication that there's something going on. So every time I go and I work with a client, I do an assessment of their entire bookkeeping and accounting, because I want to know who's doing it, what they're doing it, how they're doing it, and if we need to make adjustments like this. And that was when we started working, that there was no WIP reporting. And then we gradually started introducing this, and the financials at the end look very different. And we actually realized that we're making money, but the WIP wasn't there. So, but I will also say, for work in progress reporting to work, you really need to have systems and processes in place, because you will need to have information on how much you are actually, for example, if you're selling these cabinets and then you're installing them, you need to know how much the job is actually going to be for and what the cost is going to be. And then you're comparing that to your accounting ledger. We call these ledgers. So your accounting information, how much you have actually billed and how much cost is still left for these. And that is a very important information when you're comparing whether you have underbilled, meaning that you have actually spent more of your money on there than you have actually received from the customers, or you have overbilled. If you ever want to be in a position, you always want to be in overbilling position, because that means you have gotten more money up front than what the cost has been. So that's what we're really trying to figure out, whether you have overbilled or underbilled in this WIP report. And then we can figure out, again, because we know how much we still need to get in the future, because how much we have built, we can figure out what our cash is going to be in the future. That is important. And then how much cost is still going to come in the future. So we know what money's going to come in the future and what money's going to come out in future. And that is such an important thing, not just because it's going to tell you where you are right now, but also where you're going to be in the future.
Yeah. So let me go to the
I know
human
that's
condition.
a lot.
It is a lot, but you know what I was thinking about is just one thing. How does the business owner's face look before WIP reporting and after WIP reporting? And the face is just me being sort of really basic, but what's the business owner's attitude like after WIP reporting is in place? Accurate WIP reporting.
Oh, it's completely different, because now we know exactly if we are making money on these particular jobs, on these particular projects, because it might be that our cost estimation was completely off and now we're over budget. My goodness. Now, you know, as the job is, or as the project is happening, versus later on, 3 months later, and you're like, where did all the money go? Now you know exactly what's happening on that particular project. And as you know it, maybe there's certain things that you can do to mitigate that risk and to actually, you know, hopefully keep the cost lower. So, but the point is that you have the information and you have it all in one spreadsheet. You can look at it every month, figure out where you are, and you know exactly how much money is still going to come in. And because you know that, then you can figure out, okay, I need to up my sales because this is not going to be enough.
You have the data to make decisions.
Yes, exactly.
You have the data to make decisions. I wonder if other people have the same question as I do. And this is such a junior question. I apologize, but I can only be honest. How accurate is WIP? Is it down to yesterday or is it within a week? Like, if we're looking at work in progress reporting, how specific does it really get?
This is a really great question. WIP is only good at the time that it was run. Meaning, so if I run a WIP report today, it will only be good today. Tomorrow, I will have to run another WIP report to get the information, because you're going to get more costs in. You got to get more billing in. So it's a snapshot. It's only if you were to take a picture of your financial information, it is only as good as that particular hour in that particular minute. So if you need And generally, you don't need WIP more than once a month. And if you do, there's tools that you can use that, and you can certainly put that into your processes. If you need it weekly, I wouldn't go, you don't need it daily. But if you were to need it weekly, you can certainly do that in your accounting processes if you wanted to. But that means that you'll have to constantly be on top of your numbers, and your bookkeeper will constantly have to update your numbers to get that information. So
Yeah. Like I'm
to
just thinking
answer
on a
your
6 month
question,
build. Yeah, like on a
yeah,
6 month build where let's say I'm doing the lobby of a beautiful new building and this is architecture millwork, right? It's just a long process with
yep.
multiple elevations. How many WIP reports would I run? Or is it as many as I'd like as long as my team can keep up?
You can run it every hour if you want to.
I'm sure they'd be so happy.
Yeah, they'll be ecstatic about that.
Yeah, I mean, in truth, millwork isn't produced that fast. So on a regular basis, running it weekly, for instance, if we ran it every Friday and looked at the previous week's production, and then we reviewed it every Tuesday from that, would that be reasonable to give us an update on how our accounting was going, or is that a little too much?
You can if you want to. And again, it really depends on if your bookkeeper is keeping up with your numbers, and making sure that all the bills are entered in, and that you have all
I
the
see.
payments from the clients in, because that is the accounting data that you need updated. Because as you're selling those particular projects, that's not really going to change that much. Obviously, you might have change orders, but that's not really going to happen that often. So you
Yeah,
have the cost and the selling price set already. The thing that's really changing that much is all the costs that come through
right.
and all the billings that you need to do.
So it sounds correct me again, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Let's establish that first. But it sounds like the pace might be set by how quickly the invoices are coming in from vendors, right? So if
Yes.
I'm getting invoices monthly or at the end of the month and then they send it within 2 weeks after, I might want to align my WIP reporting with when those invoices are coming in. So if I don't have daily invoicing, I don't need daily WIP reports. It's not gonna change.
So, and let's separate this. WIP reporting for adjustment for the financial statements is only going to be done once a month. If you need WIP reporting in a real time WIP reporting because you want to make management decisions on this particular data, then you can have it anytime you want, but it's not going to end up in your financial statements more than once a month.
Yeah.
As you're running your profit and loss statement, for example, for April, it's going to be done for April. You're not going to be doing it every week, because it's going to drive your accounting people crazy and you're going to have a lot of mistakes. So let's put that aside. So for management decisions, you can run it however much you want. You can run it weekly, daily if you need to, if you have people to actually do that. But for the financial information, I would run it at least monthly. So you need to have it at least monthly, and that is going to end up in your profit and loss statement adjustment. So I hope
Yeah.
that makes it clear.
Yeah, it does for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad I asked the question. Even I'm not too worried about sounding dumb. I just asked the question I want to ask. I've given up on
That's
ego.
the
Right. So,
best. Yeah,
yeah, just, because I'm curious, if you want to use this tool, you can get addicted to using it too much and having the data. But if it starts to get redundant, or we're not, we're producing the report, but nobody's looking at it, well, that's a waste of effort as well.
exactly.
It doesn't make sense. Right. Um, but if I'm growing this business, I need to understand this report. Imagine two shops across the street from each other. They do the same thing. One has a really good sense of what their work in progress accounting is, and the other one doesn't. It's only a matter of time before the one that has good data starts to make better decisions. And those better decisions, you just start to, a horse race is only won by a nose, but pretty soon that nose becomes a length, becomes a full lap around the track, and then you're a completely different business than the other guy across the street who's just really left wondering what happened and how did we lose money on that job? We've been on it for 6 months. I don't want anybody listening to this show to be in that situation.
And that's also a good point too, is because a lot of times, first, I wouldn't even say a lot of times, people don't even look back onto the job and figure out what happened, what went wrong on this project. So if you're doing
They do
post-mortem,
here, just so you know, they do here. We call that the end of job report, and everybody's laughing right now because they probably already knew I was going to say that. But please,
that's great. So I call these post-mortem. So at the end
right.
of a project, at the end of a job, whatever you have, it's great to take. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn event, but you take a look at the financials. Where did you think you're going to be?
Right.
Where did you end up being? Were you over or under what you thought it would be in terms of finances? What went wrong, but
Right.
also what went right in terms of, oh, we actually did this better than we thought we would.
Yeah.
How can we replicate that in the next project, in the next jobs? And
Yeah.
also not just in terms of money postmortem, but also in terms of time postmortem as well, and in terms of quality too. That is super important. So looking at it from a holistical perspective, because you could be under budget, under time, but the quality wasn't good, and your customer is a problem now because they're not happy. So that
Yeah.
is a problem too. So looking in from all three perspectives, you want to balance those three out.
I love it. Thank you.
So if you have a work in progress reporting, you're actually doing many postmortems every month whenever you're looking at the work in progress report, because you are having those types of conversations. Hey, this particular project is having a little bit of issues. And I will also say too, and we can get more into details, that if you're using purchase orders in your finances, that is a great thing too, because now you will know how much you have contractually obligated already in the costs. So you will know how much cost has already come through, even though you haven't actually paid for it. So that is super important.
All
And
these small systems that come
yes,
together.
yep.
People always say, what's the one thing I can do to change my business? And you know how sometimes you say it depends when I ask a question? There is no one answer. There's no one thing you can do. It's everything that you do. It's a combination of the little things that all add up, right? If somebody was to say, what's the most important brick that you would use to build that wall? I would say, well, all of them. I mean, the foundation bricks are important, but it doesn't mean they're more important than all the bricks above it. We have to build the wall no matter what. And so people often get caught up. They'll say, hey, Dom, or maybe Kathy, what's the most important book I can read right now? I'm like, I don't know, all of them. Just go read a book. Read a book and then read another one, or listen to an audio, or listen to this podcast, but don't stop. You have to continue on forward. And what's the most important report? Well, there are some that are more important than others, but you got to look at them all.
Well, the thing is, what is happening currently in the business? So you want to prioritize it, because if you just do everything, it's going to be completely overwhelming. And
Oh,
just
you'll go
thinking about it
nuts.
makes me
Yeah.
want to take a nap. you know, it's you prioritize it. And that's what I also do when I go into the business. Like there's everything that we need to fix, but we got to start at the thing that it's the
Yeah.
most important right now. And then we chip away at other things. And, before you know it, 6 months has passed, a year has passed, and you have a completely different business because you have tackled all of these things
Yeah.
versus, and if you're trying to do everything at once, what's the best way to not meet a goal? Make 20 of them.
Oh, right. Yeah. Overcomplicate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Overcomplicated.
Overcomplicate it. Yeah.
So you do these things in priority in what actually needs to happen the most, and then you tackle everything else.
This has been great. Really good. A
Awesome.
deep dive into work in progress reporting. Don't we have exciting lives? Hey, Kathy, honestly, this has been great because I think a lot of people have these questions and they don't really know where to get this kind of information. So I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show and share this. And a lot of people have never even heard of a CFO, much less a fractional CFO. So I'm glad you're here to talk about that as well. But if people want to find out more about you, how do we find you in this big wide world?
So you can either connect with me on LinkedIn, but also because we talked about a work in progress report, and I know this is we kind of dived a little bit into it, but if you wanted to see a video of how this looks like and how your financials would look like if you don't have it, and how your financials look like after you have it, and a spreadsheet that you can use to do this, you can go to newcastle.finance/cabinet profit. And there is going to be a work in progress video for you. I really encourage you to go and look at it. And there's also going to be a work in progress spreadsheet that you can download and you can use for your purposes.
Wow. That's so nice of you. When did you find the time to build that?
It's here and there.
Thank you, Kathy. That's so nice. So hold on, newcastle.finance/cabinet profit.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm going to go look at that right after the show. Thank you. I didn't realize you built that. All right. And sorry, because I was writing it down. Tell me one more time what I can expect when I go there.
NewCastle Finance, Newcastle.finance/cabinet profit. You're going to have a work in progress video.
Uh-huh.
And there's going to be a work in progress spreadsheet that you can download and use for your purposes as well.
Nice. And a spreadsheet. Okay. Well, thank you. This has been fantastic. I think you probably earned yourself a spot to come back again one day.
Oh, thank you. I would love to.
Yeah, that's great. And folks, if you have other suggestions for finance topics, let us know. And we'll put them in front of Kathy one day and see if she wants to come back and talk about them again.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Dominic. This has been really, really fun.
Good, good. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Well, was that a juicy episode or what? I told you, this is crazy stuff. And most people in your city, in your town, in your region, in your state, if you live in the US, in your province, if you live in Canada, I don't know what they're called in other places in the world, don't use tools like this. They would never, ever speak to a fractional CFO. We learned about CFOs. We learned about fractional CFOs. We learned about WIP reports. We learned about how to use them. It is a crazy next level report. And it's one of those things where information is power. That information is out there. It's in your business, but ignoring the information doesn't mean it's not relevant. So how are you going to put this in place? What did you learn from Kathy? I was trying to think about the training that I could do right now to add value to this conversation that's already been fantastic. And what I want to talk to you about today is the profit pack and all the tools in there to get you started, because you might not be ready to talk to a fractional CFO like Kathy, right? But first, I want to talk to you. Wally from Minnesota sent me a text message. He goes, "Hey there, Dom, just wanted to shoot you a quick thank you for the free download. Finally helped me nail down my estimates and actually see some profit. You're a lifesaver. Appreciate all the tips." And then this is where he puts a little dig in the text message. "Keep them coming. Got to run. Time to check the ice fishing holes. Skull." So, and he got the go back report, which some of you have talked about. Actually, it's in the profit pack. And then I want to give you an update on somebody that's in the Construction Millionaire Bootcamp. He actually runs a cabinet shop, a growing cabinet shop, and he decided to take part in the Construction Millionaire Bootcamp. It's a 6-week course, and it lays out all the foundations for you. Anyways, this is his update. I think this is from the second week. This is what changes he's made in his business in the second week. "Hey, Lee and Dom," Coach Lee is the one who runs bootcamp for us. "Hey, Lee and Dom, I just want to give you a quick, maybe not so quick update for the week. First, the shop processes. Remember, this is week 2. All we've covered so far in week 1 is the mindset of success, much deeper than we can go into here on the show, obviously. But based on what he learned in week 1, this is what he already accomplished by week 2, right? First, the shop processes. We've gotten 3 of the 4 process stations up and running with 1 more to go. Our stations are as follows: cutting, processing, sanding, and assembly. I really hope with these stations up, we can start refining a process that'll become what I call our elevated shop process. That will give us the ability to efficiently make cabinets in a predictable way with anyone we have working on the station. Okay, imagine that was all he accomplished this week. But no, Jason, his name's Jason, is kind of a rock star. And this is the rest of the email. Our homework this week: I spent an afternoon with a nice warm latte. So he went and got a coffee, right? Detailing who my ideal customer would be. To start, I have 3 customer avatars representing each of the primary markets. So he knows he's got 3 different markets he can go after: consumer, new home builder, or remodeler, that he wants to dig further into. Now, because the consumer is really at the top of the pyramid, he says, I'll go with that one. So I want you to listen really carefully to how he defines or identifies his ideal customer as a homeowner. And there are some definitions in here even I have never considered. And I want to give a big shout out to Jason for making this observation. The better, listen, I'll get back to reading his letter in a sec. The better you and I understand our customer, and the better we understand their problems, and we can repeat their problems back to them, the better we can do that, the more they know you and I have the solution. That's why we spend so much time understanding the perfect customer, because they say their words a little different. They see the world a little different. I need to know, for instance, a residential client, so like a homeowner, cares about different things than a property manager cares about. And so because they care about maybe the same things, but in different ways, they're going to use different words to describe those. If you describe their problem back to them in a way that uses the same words as them, they know you get it. And then you get the job, and you get to help them because you're a solution provider. You're not selling based on cost. This is about profitability, helping people with their problems and adding value to the process. Anyways, let's get back to Jason's email. Here's his definition of the ideal customer. He's probably got, I'm going to say 20, maybe 25 bullet points here. I'll just read them as bullet points. Let me take a drink of water first. All right. Home value over 750,000. Wife drives an upscale SUV. Husband drives a luxury or sports or EV, electric vehicle. Family lives off one income. The spouse is social and frequently has lunches with friends, taking kids to school and school activities. Both the husband and wife are fit and care about their health. Are you starting to get a picture now of Jason's ideal customer? Like, he's doing a really good job of this, right? The family rarely eats junk food. When they go out for dinner, it's commonly a mid to upscale restaurant. They care about their appearance. Their social status is important to them. They care what their friends and coworkers think of them. That's important, guys. That's really important to know. Continuing on, they associate price with quality. They value the experience and expect a good experience. Family has 2 kids. They have dogs and cats for pets, right? Kids go to a good public school or a private school, so they invest in good education. The family enjoys travel and go on vacations at least twice a year. They appreciate home value and investing in things that increase home value. They see their home as an investment. They commonly own a second vacation home. Let me break there for a second. I was having a meeting with one of the coaches that works with Lee on our team, and we were talking about a customer, a prospect, somebody who contacted him out of the blue. And he was trying to set an appointment with the person. They're like, well, I can't. We got to go to our place up in Arizona. And I said, well, hang on a second. That is a great indicator of a perfect client, because you're talking about their primary residence, but they've got another place in Arizona. So that's exactly this definition that Jason is giving us here, right? They commonly own a second vacation home. Their purchases align with the image they want to portray. Here is the line that I got to give Jason a massive high five for. They see the things they purchase as trophies, a way to see the money they earn. Think about that line for a second. What are you doing in your cabinet shop, in your millwork shop, in your closet company, in your furniture company? What are you doing in your process to help your perfect customer understand what they're getting from you is a trophy, a way to see the money they earn? Going on with his definitions, they're not looking for the lowest price. Discounts do not incentivize this family to purchase. Oh, that's a great one. They live in a new custom home rather than a common track home. If they were to update or remodel, they would use an interior designer to help them. They're college educated. They work in finance, medical, or law. They have new wealth, not old money. They give to charities and supporting community. They go to charity events. They appreciate their status and they like helping others. They appreciate success stories. They are connectors. They like connecting people to others who can help them achieve their goals. They pay when expected to pay. They are welcoming and haven't let fortune go to their head. Okay, pretty cool, right? All of this came from week 2 of a 6-week business coaching program that Jason's in. The world is what you make it, folks. And Jason is making the most of this left, right, and center. You might go, wow, I mean, this guy already did something impressive up top in that email letter. And then Dom just read the definitions. Well, hang on. Mr. Jason is another breed. He used ChatGPT to create a picture, using AI to create a visual picture of the people, which is obviously attached to the email. I can't share it here. Oh. Okay, then Jason goes on. Okay, I've determined an exit strategy and I'm reverse engineering that journey back to where I am today. I'm finding this process to be incredibly difficult as I don't know what a 5 million in revenue shop acts or looks like. So I dream and pretend I do. Let me stop for a second. I'm so glad he said that. Myself and my coaches, we do know what a $5 million shop looks like, smells like, feels like, acts like, what kind of challenges, what kind of opportunities, what kind of people are in there, what kind of people challenges they have, what kind of customer challenge. That's our business. So we understand that. So Jason's done a good job of getting on the fast track by working with us to see that in advance of getting there, right? Smart. I could go on. There's more out here. But anyways, big high five to Jason for his work there. Listen, for those of you who aren't sure about what business coaching could do for you, we've also developed something new. And this came from a family in Florida, Italian family. These guys are like my cousins. They're so awesome. They weren't sure which coaching program was right for them, but they wanted to do something. And so a couple of months ago, we created something called the Business Operations Audit. So it's not full on coaching, but what it is a massive assessment program that lays out on paper, here's the steps you take. After we're done this big assessment, do this, do this, do that. Here's the priority. And they went and kind of did it on their own. It's called the Business Operations Audit. It's pretty cool. If you want to ever know about that, you know, it includes a 5-year financial forecast. It includes a big written report. It includes a behavioral style assessment. So you know how to go out and interact with your people and your customers. Again, it's always just shoot me a text. I like to keep it simple. My cell is 315-903-7853. Just say, Dom, let's talk. All right. The download, the professional development tool I want to give you today to support what Kathy was talking about is the Profit Pack. The Profit Pack. The Profit Pack has, I'm just looking here on another screen, five different documents in it. 5. It's a big deal. You've got a professional development tool called How to Calculate My Revenue Responsibility Per Hour. We've got another professional development tool, which is the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. We've got another professional development tool, which is an interactive workbook. It's the 1-hour job estimate calculator. Then we've got the professional development tool called the Ultimate Get Things Under Control Guide. And then we've got the workbook, Where Are My Blind Spots? So 1, 2, 3, just checking again, 5. In those 5 documents, if you were to just give yourself a day where you pour yourself a coffee and just sat down and noodled through those documents, where would you be at the end of that half a day versus where you started? Would that put you more on the path to growing your business or less on the path? And I hope you know that would take you forward in the direction you want to go. That's why I always start these episodes by, hey, guest, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking all these forward-facing contractors all over the world? You are that forward-facing contractor. Anyways, folks, let's wrap it up here. I appreciate you checking in. Again, this show is just a holdover until you and I can have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee across the table, face to face, like live humans one day. If you're in Denver, I'll be in Denver later this year. If you're in San Fran, I'll be in San Fran later this year. If you're in Calgary, I'll be in Calgary speaking for Energy, which is a software company in cabinet space. So I may see you there. So anyways, I look forward to that. Until then, folks, we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.